Hey guys, in this video I'll be explaining you how to make a well-balanced Pokemon team. If you are new to competitive Pokemon battling, then you might not be aware of the various types of Pokemons or Pokemon teams that you can build. At the most you might be able to make a team having different Pokemon types like Fire, Water, Dragon, etc. For instance, if you are new to competitive Pokemon battles, then this is what your team might look like. Here, as you can see, here as many types as you can cover so that you might be able to counter many Pokemons. For instance, if you look at this Dragonite, his moves are Outrage, Ice Beam, Thunder and Fire Blast. So 4 different types of moves. However, this might not help you to win the battle. To explain you how to make a well balanced team, I'll first have to explain you Pokemon stats. That is HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense and speed. HP stands for hit points. When a Pokemon is attacked, it loses some of its HP. So to knock out a Pokemon, you have to drop his HP down to 0. Speed. The Pokemon with higher speed will move first in battle. And now to explain you the other remaining stats, I'll first have to explain you Pokemon move categories. As you can see at the top, you'll see name, type, cat, POW, ACC and PP. ACC stands for the accuracy of the move. PP stands for the number of times you can use that move. Power is the power of that move. Under type you will see which type of move it is. And now the most important is category, that is cat. Now if you see for Ice Beam under cat, it will show you a blue symbol. It stands for special move. If you see for Aqua Jet under cat, then you will see a reddish orange symbol. It stands for a physical move. And if you see for Defog under cat, you will see a grayish white symbol which stands for a status move. If my Pokemon attacks with a physical move, only 2 stats will matter. That is my own Pokemon's attack stat and my opponent Pokemon's defense stat. Similarly, for special moves, the attacker's special attack and the defender's special defense are the only stats that matter. So if you want to give your Pokemon a physical move, then that Pokemon must have a very high attack stat and also have max EVs and IVs in the attack stat. Similarly for special attack, to defend against special attack, you will need a high special defense and hit points, while to defend against physical attack, you need high defense and hit points. Another important thing to know is tab, that is same type attack boost. So if a Pokemon uses a move that is of the same type as his own type, it will do a 50% more damage. So for instance, if my Dragonite uses Fire Blast and so does my Charizard. However, since my Charizard is fire type, the same as the type of the move Fire Blast, so he'll do 50% more damage than what Dragonite will do. Similarly, a Charizard using Dragon Pulse, and if even Dragonite uses a Dragon Pulse, then Dragonite's Dragon Pulse will do 50% more damage because Dragonite is a Dragon type Pokemon. So now to explain you the various types of Pokemons that you must have in your team. They are one-hit KO Pokemons. These Pokemons are very fast and have high special attack or attack and have very high speed. They try to knock out your Pokemon in one hit. Tanks. They have very high defense or special defense and good hit points. They can take multiple hits from one-hit KO Pokemons. Hazard Pokemons. They have very good defenses and they set up entry hazards like Stealth Rock, Spikes, Sticky Web, Toxic Spikes, and also have moves to clear out hazards in their area like Rapid Spin or Defog. Balanced Pokemons. They have well balanced all round stats, nothing too powerful but not weak either. They can be very dangerous after a few setup moves. Meta Pokemons. These Pokemons have just too many stats, no tricks, just sheer power. Now I'll explain you physical one-hit KO Pokemons. All these Pokemons have high speed and a very high attack. They have full 31 IVs in every stat and 252 EVs in attack and speed, with nature as Jolly or Adamant. Its hold items usually can be Life Orb or a Choice Band. Now let's look at Weavile. His attack is 339 and speed is 383. Both are extremely good. His hold item is Life Orb. Thanks to it, he does 30% more damage, but it reduces his 10% hit points every turn, which isn't a problem because Weavile's defenses are so low that he won't be able to take multiple hits anyways. As you can see, only 166 defense and 207 special defense. Now moving on to the moves of Weavile. They are Ice Punch and Knock Off for stab moves and 100% accuracy. Low Kick for heavy steel and rock type Pokemons like Tyranitar, Aggron, and Aerial is for fighting type Pokemon cause Weavile is very weak against fighting type moves. These are the other examples of good one-hit KO Pokemons. You can have a look at them by pausing the video. Now moving on to special one-hit KO Pokemons. These Pokemons have the same job in their team as the physical one-hit KO Pokemons, except that they attack on the special side. They have high special attack and speed, 252 EVs in speed and special attack, with nature as timid or modest. The hold items can be Life Orb, Choice Specs or Choice Scarf. Now let's have a look at Alakazam. He has a high special attack at 369 and a very good speed at 372. His hold item is Life Orb and it does the same job as before. His moves are Shadow Ball for Ghost and Psychic type Pokemons, Dazzling Gleam for Dark type Pokemons, Charge Beam just to increase his attack, and now the most important move in this moveset, the Psyshock. Now Psyshock is a Psychic type stab move for Alakazam. However, the most important thing about Psyshock, as you can read in the description, it damages target based on defense, not special defense. So despite Psyshock being a special move, your opponent will need a high defense stat, not a high special defense stat to defend against it. So he can be very devastating to the opposing team, and it's very difficult to defend against Alakazam. Now next, moving on to tanks. Now there are three types of tanks. One is physically defensive tank, the other is specially defensive tank, and then mixed defensive tank. They have good both physical and special defense. So now let's start with physical tanks. They have very high defense and hit points. They are very important in your team as their job is to tank hits from physical one-hit KO Pokemons. Now let's check out Steelix. His defense is at 548, which is very high and has decent 354 hit points. His moveset is Stealth Rock, which is entry hazard, Toxic to spread status, and Heavy Slam and Earthquake are stab moves to do some damage to your opponent. Now these are the examples of other physical tanks. You can have a look at them by pausing the video. Most of these tanks also double as hazard setters. Now moving on to specially defensive tanks. They have a high special defense and hit points. Give them 252 EVs in special defense and hit points. Hold items are Assault Vest, Leftovers, Citrus Berry, Chesto Berry, etc. Now Assault Vest is a very great hold item for these Pokemons. As you can read, it increases the special defense by 50%, but in return you can only use attacking moves. So now let's check out Snorlax. His special defense is at 350, which due to Assault Vest will become 525. He has a very high 462 HP and a good 319 attack. His moves are Body Slam as stab move and also having a chance to paralyze your opponent, Power Up Punch to increase his attack, Earthquake and Heavy Slam as they are strong and give some type coverage. These are the other specially defensive Pokemons. You can have a look at them. Now let's see Pokemon having both high defense as well as high special defense stat. The usual EV spread for these Pokemons are 252 EVs in hit points and 128 each in defense and special defense. Items can be leftovers or Rocky helmets. Now let's have a look at Shuckle. His hit points are pretty average at 244, but he has a very high 546 defense stat and 528 special defense stat. His moves are Toxic to spread status and chip away opponent's hit points, Sticky Web to help the rest of the team outspeed the opponent's team, Shell Smash is to increase his defenses, and Knock Off is to do some chip damage and also remove your opponent's hold item. These are other good examples of good tanks. Now let's move on to balanced Pokemons. Now these are the Pokemons that you usually choose in battle. For these Pokemons, it's advisable to do some setup to do high amount of damages. Since the defenses aren't as low as 1 hit KO Pokemons, they can take 2 or 3 hits easily. Now let's have a look at Cloyster. Now as you can see, Cloyster's special defense is very low. So if your opponent is using a Pokemon having a high special attack, please do not use Cloyster. But in return, Cloyster has a very high defense stat. As you can see, his defense is at 396. So if you switch out your Cloyster against a Pokemon who relies on physical attacks, then Cloyster can easily take 4 or 5 hits, and then he can set up using this move Shell Smash. Now as you can see, Shell Smash will double your attack, special attack and speed. Now if you look at Cloyster's stats, his attack is at 317 and speed is at 239, which isn't any special. However, on doubling these stats, his attack will become 634 and speed will become 478, which when combined with his ability and attacks, his ability is Skill Link, which as you can read, the Pokemon's multi-hit attacks will always hit for the maximum number of times. So Rock Blast will hit 5 times, so it will have 125 power. Spike Cannon will have 100 power, and Icicle Spear will have 125 power, which when combined with Stab will have more than 185 damage. So Cloyster, after setting up with a Shell Smash, becomes a very dangerous Pokemon. He'll move incredibly fast and do insanely high amount of damages, even more than 1 hit KO Pokemons. His hold item is King's Rock, which as you can see, it gives your Pokemon a chance to flinch your opponent's Pokemon. And since Cloyster will be attacking 5 times, it will give you a 10% chance 5 times to flinch your opponent's Pokemon, which is very good, and your opponent might not even get to move even if he survives Cloyster's attack. So now let's have a look at other Pokemons which are well balanced. You can take a look at them by pausing the video. Now next are Meta Pokemons. Now as I told you earlier, Meta Pokemons have too many stats. So let's have a look at Garchomp. As you can see, his attack is at 359 and speed is at 333. While having decent defenses and hit points at 357, 226 and 207. So Garchomp can take multiple hits with ease, while each of his attack will hit very hard. For instance, Earthquake is a physical move with 100 base power as well as 100 accuracy along with stab. So it's a very powerful move on Garchomp. His ability is Rough Skin, which means when a Pokemon while attacking, if he touches Garchomp, that Pokemon will lose 12.5% of his hit points. And Rocky Helmet does the same job. It makes your opponent's Pokemon lose 16.6% of his hit points. So technically, whenever Pokemon attacks Garchomp physically, he'll lose 29% of his hit points. So as you can see, Garchomp becomes a very dangerous Pokemon, especially if you get to set up a Swords Dance, which will double your attack. So your attack will now be 700 plus. So you can imagine how much damage Garchomp will do your opponent's team. These types of Pokemons must be eliminated as swiftly as you can. Also, a note for using these Pokemons will be that since they are too strong, they do not use any strategy, so they might take the fun out of your game. So now lastly, moving on how to make a well balanced team. So your team needs to be made of these types of Pokemons. So now let's start. Now for starters, I need a Hazard Setter. So I'll choose Ferrothorn. As you can see, Ferrothorn has very decent hit points, defense and special defense at 352, 363 and 300. He can easily set up hazards like Stealth Rock and Spikes while try to keep his hit points up by using Leech Seed. Gyro Ball does chip damage to your opponent's team and it does high amount of damage to Fairy type Pokemons. His ability is Iron Barbs, which is same as Garchomp's Rough Skin, and similar hold item at Rocky Helmet, so that he can chip away opponents' hit points. Now as you can see, even though my Ferrothorn is a very good hazard setter, he can't do much damage to your opponent's team. And your opponent can use this chance to switch in a fire or a fighting type Pokemon to which Ferrothorn is very weak against. So now to cover up that weaknesses, I'll choose a balanced Pokemon in Gyarados. Gyarados holds a life orb to do high amount of damages and his ability is Intimidate, which will lower your opponent's attack by 33%. So it's a good defensive ability. And since Gyarados is a water flying type Pokemon, he resists both fire and flying type moves and fighting type moves. His moveset will be Earthquake to do damage, Waterfall as a stab move, Ice Fang to provide coverage against grass and dragon types, and Dragon Dance is to raise his attack and speed by 50%. If seeing Gyarados' stat, he has a very good attack at 383 and a decent speed at 261, which after using a Dragon Dance, he'll have more than 570 attack and 390 speed. Moving on to next will be my physical one-hit KO Pokemon. I'll be choosing a Talonflame for that. His moves are Brave Bird and Flare Blitz. Both are stab moves and have a very high power, both at 120. His hold item is Life Orb, as you can, which increases his damage by 30%, and his ability is Gale Wings, which provides him speed. Now next, moving on to my special one-hit KO Pokemon, which will be Gengar. Gengar too is holding a Life Orb, while his ability is Cursed Body. His moves are stab moves in Shadow Ball and Sludge Wave, Dazzling Gleam for dark type Pokemons, and Destiny Bond just to make your opponent's Pokemon faint when Gengar's HP is really low. Now next, moving on to my physical tank, which will be Gliscor. Now Gliscor has a very good ability, that is Poison Heal. As you can see, when this Pokemon is poisoned, 12.5% of his hit points will be healed at the end of every turn. And therefore my hold item is Toxic Orb, which will poison my Gliscor. Now his moves are Roost, which can heal 50% of his hit points, and Protect. Yeah, when a Pokemon uses Protect, he takes no damage on that turn. So as you can see, if my Gliscor uses a Protect and Roost every other turn, he'll have 75% of his hit points healed for every 2 turns, and in those 2 turns your opponent will only be able to attack one single time because one of those moves are Protect. So if you manage to toxic your opponent, his hit points will be continuously draining, and then by using a combination of Roost and Protect you can continuously heal your hit points. So this is a great way to knock out your Pokemon. And then Earthquake as some damage move. It's a stab move for Gliscor. Now these are his stats at 289 attack, 314 defense, 291 hit points and 289 speed. Now to complete my team, I'll choose a Garchomp, that is a meta Pokemon. Now Garchomp's job will either be to do very high amount of damages in mid game or in end game. He can set up a Swords Dance and then completely destroy your opponent's team. So guys, this is how you make a well balanced team. I have already shown you most of my Pokemons. You can either make a team out of those Pokemons or be creative on your part and make even a stronger team. Let's hope to see you at the Pokemon Showdown event of the Sardar Patel Institute of Technology's Tech Fest, that is Matrix. See ya.